Good evening. It seems like every day I have to block like 12 different phone numbers that are texting me political ads or that are calling me, or that even on our Sacramento emergency phone line now, which is a Google Voice number, and when I see the icon on my phone that there's a message on that, I usually try to pay it a little bit more attention. It sends an email, it does all the stuff, all the notifications, and I've been looking at it lately, and it's been spamming the emergency line with political stuff. So there you go. We find ourselves in the midst of really a rather unique political season as we approach the presidential election in November. And the more that I look at politics, which I admit I tend to look at politics probably more than I ought, the more I find it to be an exercise of narcissism, with candidates saying, "I'm better, look at all the bad things you've done," whether they're true or not. It becomes quite tiresome, and we expend vast amounts of energy that would be better spent on our own holiness. Last week, while Pope Francis was flying back from the Orient, he was asked about the American election, and he reminded us that we have a moral duty to participate in public life, and said that we should examine the candidates and vote for the lesser of the two evils. Didn't really find that to be a particularly encouraging answer. Nevertheless, as Catholics, we are caught between worldly affairs and of those of heaven. In the gospel, we hear that the apostles are arguing over who's greater. You can just imagine the apostles going on about how important they are compared to the others. They're all arguing about this right after Jesus told them about his impending passion, death, and resurrection. They were so consumed by themselves that they could not comprehend the greatness of which he was speaking. St. James tells us that where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every foul practice. We experience this, unfortunately, even in the church because of our own sinfulness. Jesus reminds his apostles that to be first is to be last. So contrary to Ricky Bobby's dad saying that if you ain't first, you're last, we're called to humble service. We're called to be innocent like children. I know so many people who fret over the state of the world, the nation, the church, and again, I'm guilty of it too. But do we spend the same energy, or hopefully more energy, fretting over ourselves, our families, and our loved ones? Do we fret over holiness, over the conversion of sinners, over salvation? Or do we just want to be correct? If we want to make the world a better place, and if we want to lead others to heaven, we must first start with ourselves. Jesus teaches us the way of spiritual childhood. Whoever receives a child, such as this in my name, receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me, he says. What does this mean? To receive in my name must mean, at least in part, to receive because of Christ, for the sake of Christ, and with the Spirit of Christ. Thus, the kindness shown to a child, to the weak, the humble, the vulnerable, is considered by Christ to be the kind of kindness shown to himself and to the Father. This is a very different way of thinking than the passion-controlled logic of the apostles. The world's scale of values is inverted. Can we set aside our own worries and concerns to trust in the Father's plan for us with the innocent trust of a child? What do we need to change in our own lives in order that we might receive Jesus like a little child? Rather than focusing on what others can do for us, how can we better ourselves, really sanctify ourselves in order that we may serve others? If we fret about our families and loved ones, are we fretting about their holiness or about their worldly prosperity? How can we help one another to grow in holiness? Last week I preached about the works of mercy and how we can do good. What tangible good can we work in our lives, the lives of our families and the life of our parish? I would encourage all of us to focus not so much on who is greater among us, but rather how we can imitate the innocence of a child to lovingly trust in our Lord and how we can do good in his name. Now, to shift gears onto a very different but not entirely unrelated note, last week I announced our Paving the Way capital campaign. After completing our planning study, we found overwhelming support to retire our debt, build a safer entrance from Cedar Crest, and pave the way to the building of our permanent church. There's also an indication of great commitment to our financial goal. Over the course of the last few months, many volunteers, along with our dedicated staff, have been working with me to ensure that the campaign is a success. This past week, we were able to pay over $200,000 against our debt on this building and deposit an equal amount into savings for the construction of our entrance from the early pledges and contributions. And so I thank you for that. Hold off on that for just 1 second, if you would please, Rita. Way to go, Vince. Simple instructions, Vince. I told you, I'm going to tell him. So, over $200,000 paid against our debt and over $200,000 put into savings. The pledges are actually much higher than that number, but those were from some initial gifts that we received. All of you should have received by now an invitation to a reception in which we will share in greater detail this project and the particulars of the campaign. I mentioned that we've been able to get to this point with a group of dedicated volunteers who have been working behind the scenes, some now for well over a year. But we need more help. This campaign is for your parish. We need all the help of your time and talent to move forward. Treasure will come later. Today, I'm requesting on behalf of the whole parish more volunteers who can help with receptions, mailings, phone calls, and visits. I'm not asking anyone to ask anyone else for money, but rather to encourage folks to attend receptions and to participate. At this point, the ushers will be passing out volunteer cards. See, because you scared them when you started passing them out before I got to that. They probably thought they were money cards. They're volunteer cards. Pencils can be found in the pocket of the seat in front of you. And as you fill out the volunteer card, I encourage you to contemplate how you've been blessed by God and consider giving some of your time to this campaign. There are a number of ways in which you can assist with this effort. And the more volunteers that we have, the smoother we can make the process. And so please be sure to indicate how you are willing to help by checking the appropriate box or boxes at the bottom of the card. Again, while you fill out your volunteer cards, I'd like to encourage you to RSVP to one of the receptions if you haven't done so already. You'll have the opportunity to hear more about our plans, to ask questions, and we'll have your personalized campaign information available. And most importantly, we'll have very delicious, tasty food and an opportunity to mingle with your fellow parishioners. You can RSVP by dropping your card off in the office, putting it in the offertory basket, or by scanning the QR code or email. If you haven't registered with the parish, please see me or one of the volunteers after Mass, and we can get you a welcome packet. In a few moments during the offertory, we do not have a second collection, but we'll pass the second collection basket. I ask that you drop your volunteer cards into that basket, and please return your pencils to the pockets in the chairs. Actually, you know what? Drop your pencils in the basket too. Don't put them back in the chairs because this is the last Mass. In the coming weeks, you'll be receiving more information from the campaign leadership on how you can volunteer your time and your talent to assist us in this great endeavor. I thank you all for your support and your generosity, and I ask that you pray for the success of this campaign and for the increased holiness of this parish community. Thank you.